What is up, everybody? And welcome to the podcast. It is 6 a.m., 6:20 a.m. here in Australia. I am Albert, in case you don't know me. I would like to let you know that this month, Cradle of Filth revealed the title of their upcoming 13th record, Existence is Futile, hence the title of this episode. I just posted the new artwork for the podcast, the Cradle of Filth podcast, on Instagram. And what was wonderful and totally like something I was not expecting was for the band to reply, which I want to read out to you. They replied very briefly, but they did very quickly after I posted, which I'm super grateful for. So Marthus, the drummer, replied with just 3 emojis of the devil's horns right there. Kindred dude. Probably can't see it, doesn't matter. Yeah, that was wonderful because I saw them in 2008. You can actually go to instagram.com/Cradle of Filth podcast and you can see, 12 years ago, before Godspeed, on the Devil's Thunder, a gig in Sydney. So a lifelong Cradle of Filth, proud filthling, filthling for life, for fucking sure. I've just been watching a bunch of old and new Cradle of Filth performances. I can't get over that fucking title. Existence is Futile is just my life and just my brain at all times. This kind of furrow you see, and that's not like, oh, look how miserable I am. It's just that's how I process existence, is this the baseline that it actually lightens my heart, actually. Often I'm able to just kind of lift up out of myself because it's weirdly comfort and solace bringing knowing that it is ultimately futile. Dan Harmon mentioned something along those lines, saying that cosmically we don't matter, but in terms of the vessel, as in our bodies, that's where we can make some strides and honor what the vessel is intended for, live out its fleshly expiration date, or its faculties or whatever. And that's clearly very much what this seemingly fucking vampirically, eternally high quality band, that's not smoke blowing, Cradle of Filth. I mentioned it in my comment, actually, in reply to Marthus. I said, thank you for being who you are and doing what you do, man. Lifelong supporter of you, Danny, Filth, and Cradle of Filth overall. I saw you guys in Sydney in 2008 after my army accident. Literally changed my life for the better. And this podcast marks the beginning of a colossal, multi-year chronicle of the band's entire oeuvre. General discussion, in-depth thematic analysis, lyrical readings, symbolism, hidden references, and much more, including whenever you guys are having a slow day with nothing else to do. Eventually speaking with you and the others via Zoom about tunes, creativity, and any tangent-tastic topics you like. Cradle of Filth's music is the paradigm of uncompromising, immaculate, uber-detailed master craftsmanship, which your drumming absolutely embodies, as the others do, Richard, Marek, and Daniel Firth, with their respective instruments as well. No smoke blowing here. You guys are carrying that torch of hard work and quality above all in an age where those ways risk being lost. Thank you for that, brother. Rock the fuck on. Sending you and yours good vibes from Australia. And when the COVID apocalypse has subsided, I look forward to seeing the band on tour. So I guess we can start there. If this is your first time seeing any of my shows, you'll know that, you won't know, rather, that I record a main show. It's the Albert Kesser podcast, and then I subdivide all of the episodes based on each episode's theme into feeds, separate feeds, which is just a courtesy to listeners so that if they only want to hear from me about a certain topic, they can go straight to that feed. All of the inaugural episodes, I just mentioned something along those lines so that people can get that context. But yeah, it's a variety podcast since 2015, and slowly but surely figuring out this. I've actually turned it into this creative exercise almost, because I do have a very wide range, uh, wide-ranging but also in-depth interest in so many subject matters and across art and entertainment and spirituality, fucking different realms of like education and all vast, like all subject matters, even dipping into politics here and there. But very the kind of foundation is in entertainment and art, and that is honestly, I mean, look at my arm. First of all, after my army accident, I really dove into um, Cradle of Filth. Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder. That was healing, even if as debaucherous as that record was in theme. There was some themes of absolution and absolvement, and yeah, like, but also rejection, and it became something which, I don't know if some people have this, but you can emote to an album as you embrace it and you kind of pour your feelings into it and see your feelings in it across its lyrics and themes. And coming out of my army accident, very briefly, I was on a firing range in 2007, and they had sent me out without high-vis vest, hearing protection, bulletproof vest, or radio. So it was like a quadruple whammy of negligence. And very shortly after that, I segued out and, determined, I think, pretty, yeah, intuitively and decisively that, yeah, army wasn't for me. It is for some people, to, love and light to those people. And it's been long enough that I can speak about it pretty easily. But at the time, I was young and extremely, talk about existence as futile. I dove headlong into my misanthropy and existentialism and stuff. And what I love about the Cradle of Filth dudes now, and a lot of the bands I was listening to back then, is they've also matured to a point where they can tap into that space without being like of it. There's a phrase. My fiance does leadership, mentorship, relationship, emotional intelligence work, and she references this author called Carolyn Miss, and one of the things she said is, you can be in a world but not of it. And in many ways, Cradle of Filth, just like Ghost, which is another podcast I host, they are in the metal world but not of it, because there is a sense of irreverence and always a bit of a tongue-in-cheek aspect, which I love, which is it's taking that black metal aspect, which we also on Behemoth and Abath as well have these iconoclastic aspects to them. They are almost anti-scene in a way, and in that created their own scene of Cradle of Filth, which I think is what gives them their longevity and their nuance. I actually mentioned, as you saw in the comment, about how they just fucking care on every level. The lyrics and the musicianship and just the detail with like the artwork and everything, to continue doing that after however many years that they've done that for, that fucking takes a vision, and it takes an ethos and a work ethic, which is just on every fucking level, like straight up, no smoke blowing, like admirable and worthy of a lot of respect. And in creating the artwork for the cover, so Danny, one of the founding members, Danny Filth, founding member, the mood for me is what, I mean, people come to music for different reasons. I like to access art on every level I can, just to appreciate it surface level, but then go deeper in as well. And I think it's the mood that that Cradle of Filth puts me in, that I I visit it and tap into it throughout the years. It's cleansing, it's resets the brain, but it's also it's like tender as well in places. And yeah, I mean, I think even in the past I used to put it on like to fall asleep. Like there was just I definitely put it on to work out and run to. And I just have a very clear memory. We'll go into some anecdotes later, but in 2008, coming out of the army, not quite ready to like enter the workforce again, because I had the military convalescence pension or whatever, I was just running around Sydney to Seven Dates. No, fuck. Oh fuck, it's their live record. And I was just pummeling that over and over. I just have a very clear memory of, getting into I was training to be a PT. I just wanted to do something. My therapist at the time, or case manager, was like, you need to channel whatever's going on into something. And I was like, okay, well, I'll move to Sydney, get my first tattoo, which was based on my patterns, which I had started doing in 2005, which are these this one's got smoothed out a bit, but you can see this one and then that one. Influenced by Cradle of Filth's sensibilities with their the logo, frankly, and also you could look at it as being like the wider sphere of like black metal logos with the spikes and stuff. But I always found like the asymmetry. To get stripteasy here, but there you go, that one there. So that one's just called Nature, and it's based on forest detritus being arranged in a kind of shamanic, kind of divination intentional way, the way that like witches and practitioners of pagan magic and other forms of it is basically shamanistic divination, where you like cast an arrangement of like organs and bones and twigs and branches and viscera, and you just throw it all out there and you read a meaning within the sort of random patterns. And I always saw, it's kind of how I made the connection. It's multi-tiered. So you have Oddworld, which you also do a podcast for. I also do. It's 90% me, and then 10% I get guests coming in either from the creators or the community. And so it was the cave paintings of Oddworld with Elom and stuff like that. And then you had who this guy like resembles Danny a whole bunch. I'm sure I'm not the first person to make the connection. Raziel from Legacy of Kain, which I also do a show for. And then you had Darth Maul with the patterns there as well. And so and then combined with Cradle of Filth, his logo and their sort of like just, I mean, it's just so within Cradle of Filth's vibe that I mean, simplistically, like just spiky branches and stuff like that kind of Wiccan, effigy kind of quality to these. And I just sort of I assembled all of these into my all of us are just giant compendiums and coalescences of our influences. So all of this kind of melded together in 2005 when I was just writing in the margins of my French book, or drawing rather. I think I was big into Warhammer at the time, and I was reading up about the Malleus Maleficarum, which is the manual for persecuting witches, by the brothers Karamazov. And I was part of, I think it was the Ordo Hereticus, who are the witch hunters. And so it was all sort of, I was reading stuff tangentially to it. I've never always just been into the one thing. It's just like there's just so much across the span of existence to get into and to cross compare with one another. So I would never just be of one scene or whatever. So I gothed the fuck up when I went to see Cradle of Filth. But then, I'm a Fleet Foxes guy too, and but of equal level. Like that's why there's Fleet Foxes podcast as well that I do as a sub feed. Dive into that, But with Cradle, it's like I just was watching Danny, like he fucking demands extremity in attention, in dedication, even of his crowds. Like he's like, get the fuck up, We do a Slipknot thing too. I do a Slipknot thing too, and there's an element to them of that where they channel the extremity of what they like. That's why they put on and Abath would say this too. Also do a show for that, dude. Fuck yeah. Is that extremity of what they do is fueled into their work ethic. And so it's like, there's a anecdote, again, Sopranos, I do another one for that as well, sub feed. James Gandolfini mentioned that he would like put rocks and stones in his this is what I've heard, at least, in his shoes, so that it's just like something that kind of riled him up. So it was Jack White, again, I do a show for that dude. he's like he forces uncomfortable circumstances on himself, and Ghost as well. That they put the masks on, like they put some form of rigor onto themselves, which is related to strapping on the tight armor before war. There's a ritual and a ceremony to that, which feeds into their ethos. They're not just throwing on a obviously there are some bands where it's like they're extremely disciplined and they just chuck on a flannel, whatever. But I personally, at least in the in terms of incorporating like intentional discomfort for the purpose of like focusing the mind, that's what I see within like lifelong within Cradle of Filth's like approach, and it's absolutely worked for them, not just in an artistic sense. I feel honestly Filth, as in Danny, like he can say everything he wants to say within that. He's created like a proper Cradle of Filth universe, and one thing that I have like super like far-reaching perspective about is of some of these foundational bands and properties or whatever. Like they are going to go on to have like just the way that we have with Beatles and Beethoven and stuff. They will have legacies that far outlast the lifetimes of the members, and their work will merit close and repeated and revisited viewings over time. And I cannot fucking wait. I mean, there's so many access points to Cradle of Filth, but I think maybe just for historicity, since it's episode 1, in 2006, I think even before my accident in 2007, I get the sense that I was watching. A lot happened after the incident when I was on convalescence leave. If you go to albertkesser.com/art, you can see they essentially look like black metal logos with all the words removed and just spread out over an A3 piece of paper. It's just dark, aggressive, spiked, again, paganistic, Wiccanistic shapes, effigies, and that kind of, it formed a whole series, and I was steeped. It like hit perfectly. I'll just Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder. So one of the constant companions for my podcast is Siri. Released on 28th of October 2008. That's fucking peak me at home making my art, and diving into but also I was running from it in some ways, but Cradle of Filth was a way of looping me back to reflect on my kind of burgeoning and unaddressed like inner darkness and turmoil and stuff. 71 minutes and 22 seconds of fucking this fucking record, guys. Like, holy fucking shit. So but if we're going to be super duper like right from the very start of when, I don't know if it was within me watching something like Viva La Bam or something. It probably was. It was like 2006 or something, just before I had gone into the army. There was Cthulhu Dawn, I think, may have been the very first like glimpse of music, or Nymphetamine. It was very early on. I think if maybe one of the oh wait, no, fuck, are you ready? Are you fucking ready for this? Oh, I think my friends, the very fucking first song I heard, gilded cunt. It's far enough into the episode where I can say it. Gilded C word, right? Oh my god, fuck! I used to fucking smash that. I was riding around Canberra, man. Just looking at that. I also, when I excited, I just stand up. I just fucking go. I gotta like show a bit of fucking physical movement to like dedicate. I don't know. I think maybe that'll see me through my like getting older years, where I'll just have this automatic thing when something moves me, I'll just stand up. It just will ensure that I don't like, move it or lose it kind of thing, Medusa and Hemlock is also coffin fodder as well. Now this is obviously timed pretty closely with IT Crowd, where that kind of puts you in the framing is as you know, IT Crowd obviously gave Cradle of Filth a bit of exposure through Noel Fielding, like making that a part of the character. Richard, I think it is. But here's the thing: when I saw that, I had already had my own backing of knowledge of Cradle of Filth, so that wasn't like my intro. So it's this sort of amorphous. Quite a while ago, pretty long time, 2005 ish. Would have 2005 ish, 2006 ish. I went to see. Fuck, here we go. Ready? Bob Dylan, Kate Blanchett film. So that film, what is it? Yeah, I'm Not There. So that came out in December 2007. So we're talking 06, 07, between Thornography and Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder. So Nymph, Thorn, and Godspeed is kind of my era of entering into it. And there's sort of some rough. I love that. I like it's lost in the mists of time, but that's roughly when. And some of those song titles I mentioned were among the first, if not some of the first. Well, I had to fucking dive in, and the first like one, and it might be controversial, but the first one I jumped on iTunes for was Thornography. And I saw a bit of controversy about like it being poppy or whatever. I was like, this is fucking, I don't know, like this is magnificent. Like, and what I loved is I stepped into this during this like whatever controversy among the Cradle of Filth community, but I love that record. And maybe it's so weird, you know. There's that saying in like, on the 13th, which we're going to talk about. Fuck me. Actually, it's the 31st. It's, the idea that on All Hallows Eve in October, I think they're going to release it on October, frankly. Like, why the fuck not? Well, we're going to talk about Existence is Futile down the line, but, got to do the dues with episode 1. Is the idea that on certain nights, like the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead, or the realm of hell, is thinner. And so for me, it's weird, like almost to like allow me in, or to envelop me, to draw me in. It's like Cradle of Filth like softened a bit, because I hadn't really listened to anything that extreme before. I dived into, we have High on Fire. Fuck it. If I'm saying we, I'll just say it, like whatever. I'll just see myself as this like multi-consciousness being. I won't correct myself from now on. But yes, High on Fire thing is up and coming as well as Sleep as well, which I've done a recent podcast about. And and that was like, Matt Pike is like brutal and pummeling in his own way. And I got into it almost like it was pretty impermeable, actually. I was still pre-Mastodon, which is when and Tool goes all the way back to like 2004 and 5, 2002, and super early with that. I'm thinking, what is my earliest band, just for reference, just for you guys' sake? Earliest fucking band I ever connected with, like super kindred. Probably Beatles and shit. Yeah, that kind of stuff. On Ghost Podcast, we'll talk about some of that stuff. Earliest influences, because that's with Tobias. He's got some interesting early influences. That Sepultura is one of his as well. No, Morbid Death. No. We'll go into it, but to stay on topic. Yeah, that was. I'm very glad like that they basically represent like extreme for me, and with Thornography, the idea that I'd entered this, I then saw it as extreme, but to the crowd, they were like, "Oh, this is like what's happening? You're softening, you're going pop or whatever." Dirge Inferno, I loved. I'm the Thorn, Unpregnant Skies, like these lyrics. First of all, one of my grounding things, predating Tool, predating even my leaning into music, was Warhammer and the kind of gothic literature that they tapped into. So I'm not of the pure literature sphere. I've dipped into reading some of it. I think I had like a Poe month in 2010. There will be a Poe thing we do. I've got a Lovecraft thing as well. And Lovecraft features quite a bit in Cradle of Filth. But yeah, so that's kind of my grounding, was I recognized that language in Cradle of Filth, the grand gothic phrasing of and that poetry, these words, which is just, that's one thing which I love about Danny. He's very proud of his British heritage, and like I just saw it now. He said like, "Oh, our new album is coming in the fall," and he's like, "What did I say fall? That's American. I meant autumn." And he's like, it really doubles down. And that's one thing, if we can say, like, us white people have fucked a lot of shit up. We really have. And I think, as I mentioned in another podcast, if history was like a giant party, the white person, the white dude, the white old dude has been talking for fucking way too long. So ironically, I mean, I'm not getting that fucking many views. I don't give a shit. So I'm just gonna have my little pocket. So, and anytime like people of all kinds of other shades than white, like I love to uplift them and showcase their channels and stuff. Like and you can see it on albertkesser.com/services. Like that's who I love to signal boost first and foremost, is like underrepresented. And it shouldn't be. It should just be all one equal thing where everyone has their share. But if history was a party, white old dude's been talking for fucking way too long, and it's time for other voices. It really is. Given with that said, in our own little sphere, us kind of goobery white folk, one thing we can be really fucking proud of, I think, is I love the English language. Fuck, like, and I learned Italian, which makes, listening to like Ghost, for example, who dip into Italian, like Papa Emeritus, like he has that affect, and he, like that's an experience that I'm grateful for. There's a sub podcast I do called the Montefiore podcast, which I try to do in Italian, and that's the medieval village that I grew up in. I spent 2 years there, which again, Gilles de Rais. It's obviously medieval France, but there's an analog there. They're only a couple of Ks from each other, a couple hundred Ks. And when I was listening to Godspeed of the Devil's Thunder, everything just came fucking rushing back. So my record, like for Mastodon, for me, it's Blood Mountain. I think maybe we may be sensing a pattern, is that 2006 to 7, 8 or so, there was like a brace of albums that like, boom, like Fleet Foxes, there was that debut, still unsurpassed. I love Shore, but still really like formative, and I'll just have vivid images, and it's eternally re-listenable. Cradle of Filth, overall evergreen. These themes, the lyrics, the sensibilities, like for me, quality permeates and transcends genre, making whatever that's made with such quality, such hard work and attention, there's something timeless about that elevates it, not in like some pretentious way, but just like that's something that all walks of life and all perspectives can recognize. It's like, oh wow, this effort was applied to this. And I think that's art for me, is might be fucking controversial, but for me, art equals effort. Like a lot of people say, oh, art can be anything. It's like, no, shitting on a fucking piece of paper and slapping it to a wall is not art for me. Art, the constant for me personally, and I don't think I'm too alone in that, is effort. It's sustained, applied, and the thing is, like, oh, you'll hear like, oh, Led Zeppelin recorded their fucking first album in like an afternoon or some shit. It's like, well, they still fucking rehearsed. They still didn't have like Instagram to distract them and shit. They still fucking wore their fingers down, like doing takes and stuff, or practicing and shit. It's like effort is the constant with art for me. And Jack White talks about how, with all the comforts of the modern age, especially like the digital age where everything's just a finger press away, he's like, now I have to force those limits on myself, because that's what makes sense to me, is there's a rigor, like childbirth, there's something unnatural about producing something without effort, and something also that it just doesn't matter. 9 months is the child carried in the womb, and then the process, like there's something where that needs to be consciously honored now. Back then it was a matter of like you just had to go through these like with editing film, you had to like cut the film and everything. Like that's where a lot of these terms come from. Now it's so simple, but you need to honor I think, and honestly, if you think about it, it makes it something where now that it's a choice you need to have to take unto yourself. It's not just about the restriction. Not to be all like, oh well, I mean, everything's relative. Some people love the past. Some people are fine with the president. Sorry, see, like I've just shown my bias there. I do love the past a bunch. I'm a pretty self-confessed. I might have to start the nostalgia podcast, but no, I have the existence podcast for that. It's fine. You can't do too many sub feeds. But yeah. So anyway, I think I love my tangents as well. But anyway, like quality is effort, and it is rigor, and it is, Martin, like the drummer. Fuck me, like, and I said it in my comment. It's like, try and even just like, if you're not a drummer, just like try and keep a beat for like a couple minutes, like a steady beat. Fuck that. It's like and it takes so much fucking practice. And the only thing I can claim to be even vaguely analog is, I put a bunch of effort into my work, my 3 spheres of the patterns I make and the storytelling I do, and the media, which is this art, storytelling, and media is the sort of 3-pronged thing at albertkesser.com. And I love it. Like I can't. Yeah, I think Rocco from Mega 64 says this is like, I can't go through a day without creating something, without applying effort to something. There's just something like, not that there's a resignation. It's like life is about suffering. I love relaxing. It's the weekend right now, but there's something about it just forces you. I guess it forces you in the present, and it forces you to recognize your vessel is that pain. And Cradle of Filth's lyrics, I mean, pain is almost at the heart of it, really. Darkness certainly as well. Evil, not in an earnest way, not in a actual like church burning, real for real murdering thing. I think imagery of evil, imagery of Satanism, are very much like Ghost in a way. They're actually almost, I would call them like sister bands, like Canberra, Narita, like, or whatever country you're in. Look up your cities like sister bands. Sorry, sister cities. That's kind of the relationship they have. They're polar opposites, and yet they have a kinship. I'll have to look into maybe between now and episode 2, which for the main feed, this is going to be 248. I'll look into their kinship, if they've ever done, maybe even chatted or something. But I sense them to be like, they have a very like-minded approach, I think, to balancing artistry with commercialism, and always with what tips to, the authenticity and the artistry. Like there's no artistic compromise for these fucking people. Like what I love is that they are these pillars, I think, and we'll see how the Instagram, quote unquote, Instagram age approaches allowing people to become like pillar bands. But I see Cradle and Ghost as like, I think big business. I do a show for them as well. Is they almost feel like that, like the door had closed right before they entered that. I think they encountered that wall of sorry. It's like all the pillar bands have been made. Big business, though, I'm manifesting for them. It's why I've started their podcast, is because they're fucking like Mastodon meets Pink Floyd meets fucking, oh man, they're fucking great. Again, the shared thing with Cradle of Filth and big business, for example, there's always connections. I love even unintentional connections. I think it's just a worthwhile muscle to exercise. Is Cradle of Filth process that weight and heaviness of existence in a niche. It is a genre, but it's I was just looking at fonts, for example, for the and podcast. Obviously, I just used the Cradle of Filth logo, but there was like over 200 fonts that I made my way through. Is the Gothic genre and Cradle of Filth are a testament to that. It is expansive, and obviously the themes: eternity, eternal life, violence, evil, crypticness, and occultism. I mean, it's endless. That research into like the research into darkness is endless as darkness itself. And I once owned. I'll have to find some way to gain a copy again because I really started my book collecting now. I've eschewed the stretching, sorry. Eschewed my vinyl, statues, anything that is just the sort of thing to just sort of sit around, not really have that instantly accessible purposefulness. It's not a Spartan minimalistic thing. It's just a preference. I think it's seen me well and been kinder to the wallet. As like, and you enter this, folks. Like I'm 32, 33 in November this year, so call that daggy, but fuck yeah, financial responsibility. Yeah. So also to maybe some young Cradle of Filth folks listening in, let me tell you right now, as daggy as this may sound, the fucking turmoil and darkness and seeming inescapability of that era of time. You've probably heard all kinds of fucking permutations of this, and you've heard all permutations of what I just said, which is, I'm sure a lot of you roll your eyes at older people trying to like relate to your circumstances, but step outside of age for a moment. Think about existence, which this fucking record, that fucking title is just fucking perfect. Step outside of that and think about what, it doesn't even matter. Like, think about what's outside of humanity. It's like light and dark, right? Certainly darkness is what we come from, the womb, and return to the tomb. That's what Joseph Campbell mentioned. Mythology podcast, baby. Another sub feed. Is there, and there is some connected subject matter there with with Cradle, like the blood of the womb, and when you're talking about the tomb, obviously also associated with blood, with death and stuff. So we live in this kind of we're framed by death. I'm framed by void and blood and darkness. So it's like it's the home we return to. However, it's not what we live in. What we live in is this state of light and the warmth that comes from, like, actually, if you heat mapped everything, we would just be organs. Anyway, I just got a comment. Ottoman Gaming, hello there, hope you're doing well. I do these for just like minimalism's sake. I think I've really refined my setup. I just record straight to YouTube, export the mp3 mp4 out, and away we go. If I feel like it, I'll just record maybe audio and then add some effects and stuff, but I'm just stalwartly waiting for with Chrome. Like, I'm sure they're going to be able to add, like, I can just click somewhere and add another YouTube channel they can jump on. So, like, these are just tools that I see taking shape. So it's like, fuck OBS, fuck all of that technical shit. Like, life's too short to like stress myself out with that shit. So shout out to you, my friend. But I'll just continue with just that riffing on Cradle and their themes. And there is this universality to what Cradle expresses. It's never just gothicness for gothic's sake. And we would I would be able to tell if he had like just gone into autopilot mode. Like, and other people might cast that judgment of like, yeah, well, it's just the same record over and over. It's like, fuck no. Like, it, first of all, definitionally not. So shut up. Like, they haven't copy pasted the fucking record. It's different. And Danny is a scholar, like the same way that we do the Nile podcast as well. Carl Sanders, Egyptologist, another endless field where you can just, there's endless, obviously there's a finite thing, but the endlessness comes from revisiting the texts over time. And frankly, in terms of our lifetimes, it may as well be endless, because there's no physical way we could read every single fucking line of Gothic literature, nor is there a way we can read every fucking line of Egyptology and Egyptian scriptures and stuff. So these two kind of kindred scholars, that way, they throw themselves at this material and they find eternally relevant kind of like passages of that are endlessly applicable. So I'll just go right. Cradle of Filth, Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder, Dark Lyrics, which is this wonderful site which brings up all the lyrics, which is fantastic. Motherfucker, here we go. We'll do a bit of lyric reading. So, in grandeur and frankincense, devilment stirs. When light no longer rose to kiss me, I swore to tear heaven asunder. as flights of fallen angels wished me. Godspeed on the devil's thunder. I think again, no smoke blowing. It's like the romance and the grandeur. Right there, there's that word grandeur with Cradle of Filth's lyrics, unsurpassed. Like just from sheer exposure to the material and his authorship. Like this is all like he may quote here and there, but Danny is an author. And compiled together, which this show will be really conducive to, is going through. If there was like a Yates podcast or a Blake podcast, which that's also in the works for us, you could just dive head fucking long into this stuff. And again, the mood that it produces. I mean, actually, a little anecdote while I do a bit of admin here. I Ray and I, where it's Valentine's Day today. Happy Valentine's Day. And in 2012 and 2013, when we were first in our sort of, the courtship years must never end, folks, but in our actual literal first like full courtship year, which was 2013, I would call her and I would read or recite, the moon she hangs like a cruel portrait, soft winds whisper the bidding of trees, as this tragedy starts with a shattered glass heart. Leaves. Oh, lyrics. Need to get those right. But oh, no tears, please. Fear and pain may accompany death, but it is desire that shepherds its certainty, as we shall see. Like, it's straight up fucking prose. You know what I mean? It reads as such, and yeah, deserves to be held in the respect of such. So here we go. As I mentioned, so yeah, okay, I'll keep reading here because again, it's going to stir memories. So, shout out of hell, eclipsing violent centuries like a dark scar over France. Enter the nascent Gilles de Rais, a warrior and a scholar. He fought for Joan of Arc before she met with martyrdom and flames. Far from fairy tale, a death's head on his sail, a light that would not fail beneath her spell. But the crucifix was veiled when his decadence prevailed. In a drench of red regaled, he was shat out of hell. Fuck. Okay, let's go. I mean, I do Tim Burton podcast as well. Immediately evokes the horseman, spurting forth from that tree. So at some point, eventually, with Danny, Martin, Richard, and the others, it'll be rad to speak with them. We'll probably cross-pollinate a bit, but I'll ask him. I have some questions already for bands where it's like, did that come to mind? These little questions that now, because of one thing I do enjoy the democratization of the internet for, is that it gives access to I can message folks and 9 times out of 10 they won't reply, but occasionally they will. Some of the interviews with Tommy L. Jenkins for Kojima, beautiful, the wonderful Kindred, beautiful inner and outer, smart, and and I want to say this about Danielle Basucci, who is a vampire, by the way. We've said this before, we've discussed it, her and I, very much on the same page as Ray. I think it's probably about 10 episodes ago. That's also who Danny strikes me as. Like, he enters these dark spaces, but the fucking guy is he's a worldly dude. It's how you keep a steady head on your shoulders, and it's how you stay well-rounded and grounded. And obviously earlier on, we're all super edgy. I mean, look at my tattoos. Like, the earlier stuff, it was spikier and more aggressive. And the guy, he may have mellowed out off stage, but on stage, he's fucking, it's like he just keeps getting, what the fuck? Like, again, this vampire defying time and just, but one thing I sense, just like with Conan, also do a show for the series, as in Robert E. Howard, but the band specifically, they did Existential Void Guardian. I'll discuss the band on that show as well down the line. I love the idea of existentialism, like being the main thing. Cryptoriana, the Manticore, like these records, like they're in that sort of realm. But then I like the idea of stepping behind it and analyzing all of it and making a record from that kind of darkly existential place. That's going to be fucking rad. But so yeah, all that good stuff. Oh, that was a bit of a tangent tangle, but yeah, I suppose to kind of work our way to sort of thread our way back is I do enjoy that that's something the internet has permitted, because I think it's additive ultimately, and as much as the internet has taken away, sadly, in terms of like direct profits to the band and stuff, exposure is really easy because of sometimes algorithms can fuck it up, but shareability is certainly much easier than back in the day, and that is rad. I love that. A lot of people discovering Cradle of Filth, and it was a dark fucking year last year, so darkness draws darkness, and I think a lot of people have entered the Cradle of Filth sphere for the first time. If you have, looking forward to this chronicle, which is just this byproduct of my relationship, engagement, kinship with Cradle of Filth. Like you can follow along, and we might do a chronological thing where we go through each record. You know, like maybe just lyrically, like dark lyrics, just go boom, album one to album latest. But we might jump around here and there. Again, this is just the first episode, so we're just sort of introductorily jumping around a bit. Shout out of hell, frozen in iniquity, a passion for awe in an age of grief. His wealth and power led him on to the tainted gates of Babylon, born beneath the howling stars in a shower of golden lice. A wolf cub with the world between his saber teeth, torn between extremes of faith, the pious and the priests. He fed the devil children like he threw his mastiffs meat. This shit here is fucking 2020. The idea of like throwing, like, I mean, look, the fucking, and we will fearlessly like trump that shit. Fuck that tyrant bigot treating his people like shit. And yeah, if you're pro Trump, fuck off. Straight up. No space for you here. And also if you're that person who's like, well, it's all like an illusion and they're all the same, and it's like, well, fuck, great, all right, whatever, say it's an illusion, doesn't matter for me. You can't just sit it all out on some philosophical high ground. Step in, even if it's a fucking performance, like support the performer or the pretender or whatever, whose actions, for whatever fucking insidious whatever reason, like the byproduct has to be good for the average citizen. Like, call me a socialist, but that fucking matters. Like, you don't want to fucking, like, life is short, you want it to be as comfortable, or at least just as positive as possible. So this fucking guy, ancestor of the Trumps and shit, ancestor of, by the way, that QAnon shit. It's an adage I have, that often what we find other people accusing the most aggressively often is a sign that they themselves are that. So my theory is all this shit about the blood drinking cults and stuff that the Dems accuse the Republicans of. Guess the fuck what? It's the other way around, and they're just trying to push that away. Push the inquiring minds, which now the investigations, they won't stop, and we might find some shit. And he just strikes me. Look at him. That's another thing. You need to intuit. Don't just like get lost in words. It's like intuitively that fucking man is degenerate. Like, you can just see. And I love this kind of analysis. Maybe down the line, some progressive band or whatever might do a big kind of dive into like Trump's dark psyche and this concept record about his fucking darkness. That whole shit. So yeah, so he really attained this Gilles de Rais sense that he was above it all. I just did True Detective recently, an episode, and that thing of time's a flat circle, and I can keep these children, spoilers, in like a van, and they can be emaciated and fucking all that awful stuff with like, yeah, man, some of that dark shit that like criminals, they just sort of, I dipped into the Night Stalker a bit here, and obviously the serial killer mind is this. I think it's a fallacy of the unbound. So they say, well, the Night Stalker, he was like, I was just channeling mankind's inherent darkness. It's like, again, remember, darkness before and after. During, though, access darkness for art, dive into it philosophically, all those other realms, but in the practical sense, you're not a creature of darkness. You will return. It's like, believe me, there's going to be enough darkness after that. So honor the vessel. The vessel leans towards light. It's why our wounds heal. And if you want to get a bit hippy dippy, even on this show, I won't spare you. is there's a documentary called The Esoteric Agenda. They pulled up the parabola of the the DNA strand, how packed it is. They actually measured it, and then they looked at a human being experiencing joy uh, compared to one experiencing fear. So the fear electromagnetic signal is this very languid, long, drawn out thing, and then the joy signal is this tightly packed together kind of wave. And so if you match that, they overlaid it over the parabola of the DNA strand, and they matched at like 90 points. So whatever, again, it's called The Esoteric Agenda, but it doesn't matter about what's in it. It's that, I mean, when I say that, it's, and you've seen the strands, like, you know what I'm talking about, that that is enough to know, folks. And this is important. Like, oh well, Albert, you're talking about, dive into the record, and we will. Oh my god, there fucking will be. Just like the quantum myth, this shit's lifelong. I'll see you guys on fucking episode 3000. I'm fucking serious, when I'm like 80 or some shit. But so we have time, so make time. But it's a cautionary tale, Gilles de Rais, and that's what I'm also touching on here with it's like, yeah, oh my god, it's fucking fascinating. It's so great in the realm of art, never to bring into the realm of the real world. And I think you cannot. And it's not even like a forbidden threshold to cross. And like Marilyn Manson is facing this too. It's like, guess what, Alice Cooper, at least so far, some of the dark artists, they are able to access that without being in it. And I think it always has that opposite thing. Anytime I see a serial killer who's like, I've ascended, I just see it as pathetic. I never venerate, revere. I pity a lot of the time, and I pity Gilles de Rais to a point, but I find him completely fucking deplorable. There is an angle in the record of looking at it sympathetically, looking at the figure, as in Gilles himself, sympathetically here and there, but we are our actions, and trend towards light, folks. It's fine. Like, it doesn't make you any less of a fuck, man. Like, it just hits me every single minute of my life is it's, I mean, look at me. I call this my temple of grief, is the furrows and the roof that I like. That it's not even like, oh, look how, again, I think I mentioned this at the top of the show, I'm not like proud of it. I don't like wear it as a badge, but it just hits me. Like, I'm sorry, but like, there's a lot to grieve about and to feel mournful about moment to moment. But you find avenues to express it. You own it, and that's why what I do Dune podcast as well. And Ray and I agree. The litany against fear. There's just one thing. It's like, it says, "I must not fear." It's like, the first line, like, no. Let it. Like, never put something as like, I must not. You can just let it in. And I love the latter lines, which is like, let it move through you and stuff, and like, watch its path and stuff. But fear is it's so important. It's like, it's where lessons lie. So you need to let it in. So that whole thing of, I must not fear. I must not, experience fear without letting it in. It might not be as like lyrical and like, blah, whatever, that sense that when you're writing something, to have that impact, it might, imagine the litany of fear with an asterisk. Is like, whatever, it's fine, it gets its point across. But that's why I let fear in, man. It's why I let darkness in. It's that whole thing with like Lucifer, like Lightbringer, like it's so interesting that he is this figure of darkness, and yet his name means light. So, and that I take to mean that within the like pit of darkness, like the heart of darkness is light, and you are that light inside this. Again, we're framed in that sort of bookcase of from darkness to darkness. In the middle, there's light. So that's one thing that's my personal relationship with Satanism and that whole notion. I'm not an anyist. I'm not an ist of any kind. Yeah, and that's what has always connected with me. And revisiting these lyrics is like, they're screamed by Danny, almost unintelligible, indecipherable. So that's why, again, merits close and renewed over the years, just rereading, like beautiful poetry as well. People read certain poetry books over time and sort of divine meanings from them. And especially when, again, the constant for me with art is effort. And they were certainly made. I can just yeah, you can envision maybe down the line speaking with Danny, I'll be like, ask him about the headspace and what he wrote in and where he was writing, and that is always nice imagery to think about of how someone made their art. So, but anyway, let's continue this one and then maybe wrap things up because we're coming up to the hour. So, far from fairy tale, the coffin and the nail, descending to the pale under the spell of alchemists who failed to clench the menstrual grail. In a drench of red regaled, he was shut out of hell. Grown so morbid without war, the wine corrupted, nightmares spored. His lord's betrayal played no more. He beat upon the devil's door. Apathy, listlessness, ennui, those can be dangerous. They can really be, we're not all Gilles de Raises in the way that we approach it, but let's just say he's an extreme, elemental of it. But we dip into darkness if we don't give ourselves purpose. And I just watched Kong Skull Island. I'm going to record some Monsterverse stuff soon. And Samuel Beckett's character, Packard, he has a visual array, self-destructive quality where he just can't handle that the war is over, and as soon as he gets called up, it's where he's in his element. And Gilles de Rais, like I can imagine, this is again a parable and comparable to like veterans, who I myself am a veteran, but again I segued pretty happily out of it. I never fully deployed or anything. We were on the verge of it. In 2007 to East Timor, I think we were doing some prep. So my accident happened on the firing range in Sydney, so I didn't actually deploy. But I got enough of a sense of the place where it's like it's just people are militaristic lifers and they need, and I caution all listeners, bears endlessly repeating throughout life is do not hinge your sense of purpose to something external, to an external ritual or a lifestyle or something. It's like you can only find that permanent solace within yourself. Like, and he tied his worth and his sense of self to war and to violence and stuff, and he stewed in it, and this was the result. So, demanding pleasures to replace Joan of Arc, her epic grace had set aflame his wolf heart with her truth. And when she died, his life of pride was lost to God, and in his crimes he turned to raising Satan with the proof. It's tragic. Like it's framed with tragedy, definitely. And you feel for him a bit, but then, inexcusable what he does later. Inexcusable. This fucking thing, I posted it to the A24 forum, and I will be doing similar. I also want to be one of the, motivational signal boosting voices behind. Get ready. Look at me. Albums are fucking perfect for adaptation as films and games. It's, and like, oh wow, he's getting so serious. I am. I straight up am. Them by King Diamond. I do a King Diamond sub podcast. Them is just structured perfectly as a film. Godspeed, perfectly as a fucking film. They could just call it straight up Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder. A24. This shit, like it's. I don't know if. No, I think it would have hit me. I'm pretty plugged into the entertainment art sphere. It hasn't been done yet. I don't know if I have to eventually jump out of podcasting to fucking make it happen, to like learn some directing and jump in and be like, this is how to do it. I mean, I'll do it to whatever ability I can, but if I'm not seeing it within a few years, fuck it, I'll roll up my sleeves. Like this is, Robert Edgar, think of The Witch. Robert Eggers directing Godspeed of the Devil's Thunder, Ari Aster directing Them by King Diamond, and then Syriza, or another name could be The Clergy, this film that I think I posted about it. I deleted my Reddit account as like a big kind of social media refresh, claiming back that whole sense of like, fuck you. And like now I think I've achieved peace with it. It's all social media and stuff. It just funnels to like albuquerque.com/art/store, Quantum Myth. So I it's this idea that I have, and the reason why I'm like pausing to bring it up is man have I envisioned it, it's like a rock opera type thing. Take Amadeus, and Amadeus is huge for these guys too. The operaticness, take note, Ghost and Cradle of Filth, sibling bands in many ways. Take a bit of Amadeus. Definitely take a lot of Midsommar, and there you go. It's just go nuts. Like that's a story which we'll go into on the Ghost podcast. We'll break down the plot, and I'll write something up or whatever if I want to reference it or something. That whole thing just writes itself. It would be like this fourth wall breaking thing. You could do something Cradle of Filth fourth wall breaking too, with discovering some of the culture behind it. I think they're great for direct adaptation, but with Ghost, there's a meta quality where it's like the protagonist would like discover that the clergy's real and stuff. I think you could call it, ready? Here it is, The Order of the Dragon. If you were going to do a Cradle of Filth, you could adapt bands, but you can also adapt records, and it's just this giant untapped field. So watch that fucking space, people, for sure. I had a Primus day yesterday, off topic, just super briefly. Primus, like south of the gas pump or something. Like this is novel, perfect for adaptation. So it's inexplicably untapped. So wanna see more, and we'll manifest more for that. Soon, nightly and unsightly offerings were made on a vulgar altar, and slowly but surely the darkness answered like a falling star. Far from fairy tale, insanity exhaled a full-blown winter gale under its spell. Innocence assailed where entered and impaled. In a drench of red regaled he was shut out of hell. Perverse, seductive, cruel as sin, an egotist he mourned, both war and glory schooled to win whatever bored imagination spawned. Huge for this era, folks. Boredom, a silent killer. Talk about fear. Fear might be the mind killer, but boredom is the silent killer, of life and ambition and love and connection and everything beautiful. You have no excuse ever to be bored. I think you can get numb sometimes. There's certainly an information overload happening out there, which would, I think it would. You have to train yourself. You have to, again, be your own best friend in this world. Like, find out the things. Like, say life was like this rickety thing. It's like, what can you rely on endlessly that is just not conditional on anything? It's yourself. And we read these stories of people giving up themselves to darker powers, to darker urges and impulses. But those stories, like fairy tales, frightening fairy tales, we do Del Toro will dive into some of that. Monsters, like Gilles de Rais, act as such a contrast to that they kind of force us back into our own selves, because they act as such an external thing. They force a mirror to us. We see ourselves in that mirror, and it just wakes us and shocks us. And that's another timeless thing, is that idea of the cautionary tale, which, maybe on the next one we'll dive into the rest of the lyrics. But as I said, this is just the kind of the first go of it. But I think this has been great. We've just crossed the hour. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, whoever tuned in, who's tuning in now or later. A beautiful, three times, beautiful ongoing over to dive into with Cradle of Filth. As I mentioned, I'm stoked to see them live again, as I will be to see like Mastodon. I got to see them again. Mars Volta, manifesting for them. We do a show for them too. But fucking Cradle, man. First of all, also, I want to say it's you hear these lyrics, you may even read them as you're going along, and certainly, obviously, you hear them. As again with Danny, love the method. Still, I think the most unique singer in extreme records, extreme metal. Like, it's just he hit his throat with some, I don't know what he summoned to happen to his throat. Something that he can like click and access. It's just this shrieking hell shrieker, and it's just thus far unsurpassed. Don't think it will be surpassed in that idiosyncratic, but like it just again, it does what extreme metal does, which is just instantly transports you because it's just so otherworldly and unearthly. And yet he's a grounded dude on the side as well. And that's kind of maybe the sense, hopefully, that you've gotten is like with my art, you can see it's a lot of, even with quantum myth, it gets into some heavy territory with like existence. And my patterns are this depiction of the ever shaping, which is this invisible field along which all of creation, whatever field, like music, even sentences, like any form of creativity at all, it's all coursing along these invisible ley lines, that's what my stuff is, in this undulating kind of patternscapes. So that, and just like with Danny and Cradle of Filth, there's a heaviness and an intensity to it. But if maybe to come out of this one, maybe going into the weekend, to like have like a weekend thought to think about, or whenever you're listening to this on like cozy fireplace with rain outside, or like riding on your bike or doing laundry or whatever, access that in the entertainment and art sphere, return to warmth and goodness. And that might sound fucking corny as fuck for like a Cradle of Filth podcast. That's just how I just think that that's the way to most fully metabolize everything that something has to offer, is not just to be a fanboy of it, not to ever be a fanboy, really. It's like I honestly only ever really approach my entertainment and art stuff as, like as an adherent, as like an enthusiast, definitely, but it's more like how this feeds into my life, and feeds into the human experience and stuff. And that's just always the first layer I appreciate things. And fuck, is there a lot to dive into. That's a lot of what, if you're seeing kind of the non-verbals of my body language, is like I just cannot fucking wait over the years to dive into some of this stuff. So Existence is Futile, this year, every year it is, every moment it is. No, but I'm looking forward to that record too. And welcome to this ongoing chronicle of Cradle of Filth, musings, analysis, kind of stuff. As no schedule, it's just, and fuck, take it easy. May darkness guide you in the best way it can, and return to light, and know that you are light through the darkness. Okay, so until next time, folks, bye for now.